I didn't know it doesn't give you this. Is it recording? Yeah, it's recording. Yes, everyone. So just a reminder, if anybody has not yet arranged from Chirat Chametz, so there'll be an opportunity to do so after Maariv tonight, after Maariv tomorrow night, to Shachrit tomorrow, and on Friday. And that's it. So Friday is your last chance to arrange it through me. If you want to say your Chametz elsewhere, that is also okay. But no, on Sunday we won't be doing it. So get in there this week. Okay, I want to talk about something this evening related to Seder night. There's an interesting halacha, which I mentioned the other day at the Yom Iyun, mentioned briefly in passing, which I want to dwell on a little bit further this evening. It's even connected to Parshat Shavua, so we'll see. The Ramah in Siman Taf Ayin Vav mentions a strange minhag that we have, a strange reason for the minhag, which is of eating eggs, using hard-boiled eggs on the Seder night. We have an egg on the Seder plate. Many have the custom to begin the meal, the first course, after the matzah, the maror, the korech, etc. First course after that, to begin with eating the eggs. And so the Ramah writes, he says, "Noagin b'ktzat mekomot le'echol b'seuda beitzim, zecher ha'avelut." The reason why we eat eggs on Seder night is as a sign of mourning. V'nirei li hatam, and he explains, mishum shalel Tisha B'Av nikba b'leil Pesach. The Tisha B'Av is always on the same night as Pesach. Doesn't mean that Pesach is Tisha B'Av, but it means the same day of the week. Right? That's according to the Atbash. And he explains, there is an element here of mourning, and the fact that we would bring the Korban Pesach. Now we don't have the Korban Pesach, etc. So that's what he says. So we mentioned, more than that, we mentioned one aspect of this at the Yom Iyun, discussed. I'm not going to go back into what was said over there, but this connection between Pesach and Tisha B'Av sounds very strange, sounds very arbitrary. Okay, so the same night, the same day of the week. So Pesach is on a Monday night and Tisha B'Av will be on a Monday night. So what? So what? So the same day of the week, is there maybe something deeper going on here? Is there a deeper connection? What are Chazal trying to teach us? What is the lesson from the fact that the same day of the week is Pesach and is Tisha B'Av? So maybe just in terms of this, we see it's not so straightforward. The Ramah said, again, that the egg is a sign of mourning. It's connected to Tisha B'Av. The Gra, the Vilna Gaon, mentioned this the other day as well, was very opposed to this. He says, the Mishnah Berurah brings, he says, Nirali Yatam, Gra Katav Odtam. Vilna Gaon wrote a different reason. So that we have essentially two cooked foods on the Seder plate. One is the Zroah, which is a Zecher, the Korban Pesach, the Beitzah, which is another one, is a zecher, the chagiga. It is a remembrance, commemoration of the other korban that was brought. He says, "Mikom makom tzarich le'eda shelakol ha'ta'amim ha'beitzim sheyach ha'minhag gam b'yom hasheni." That's obviously in Chutz La'aretz. If you would do it on the second day as well. But he says that you have to know, whatever the reason is, ha'beitzim she'ochlim b'toch ha'seuda rak zecher ba'alma. The eggs which you eat in the meal, that is just a zecher. There is no obligation to have a kazayit, shiur chazon ish of the beitzim as well. And he says, "Delo ka'amon shechoshvim zeh lamitzvah." Many people think this is the mitzvah, just like eating matzah. You have to eat the eggs. You have to have 3, 4, however many it is. Umechamat zeh memalim kresam ad shochlin afikoman al achila gasa. So people who fill themselves up too much on the eggs on the first course, they get to eating the afikoman and they're already full, and it's achila gasa. It's not, and that would be inappropriate. Lachen tzarich adam leida b'nafsho. The person has to know, don't eat too many eggs. Okay. But and that goes for the whole meal as well. The person should pace themselves on the Seder. But so what is behind this idea of these eggs of Pesach, Tisha B'Av? And is there something more than just fancy gematria, isn't that? So maybe the way to start to look at this is worth the 4 questions, the Manish Tana. We all remember the Manish Tana. We all remember the 4 questions. But when you think about it, where do we find the answer to the 4 questions? So we ask the Manish Tana, we have 4 questions. Immediately afterwards, the Haggadah answers. Avadim ha'inu leParo b'Mitzrayim, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu otzianu misham. We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and Hashem took us out, and we're now free people. So how does that answer the questions? Well, if you think about it, the first question is, on all other nights we eat chametz or matzah. Tonight we eat matzah. Okay, we know matzah commemorates going out of Egypt, that matzah could be poor man's bread, or matzah also represents the freedom, the fact that they left in haste, etc. Okay, on all other nights we eat whatever vegetables we want, and tonight we eat lettuce, or horseradish, right? We eat maror. Why is that? Why do we eat the bitter herbs? Again, the answer is we were slaves. We were slaves in Egypt. The bitter herbs represent the bitterness of slavery. So we have the answer. On all other nights, we sit and we eat normally, right? We sit on a chair. This night, we recline. Why are we doing that? Again, because we were slaves. We became free people. We're now free. Free people, at least the way they used to do it back then, was they used to recline while they were eating, and that's what we recline. Okay, so we have answers. And that short sentence answers 3 of the 4 questions. What about the question, on all other nights, we don't dip our food? Tonight, we dip our food twice. Why? Why are we dipping our food? Answer, because we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and now we are not slaves anymore. How does that answer the question? So that question seems to be left unanswered. By the way, just tell you anecdotally, I heard a parish once that said, why is it that we don't answer that question? Why is it that the children come and ask all their questions? We feel compelled to give an answer to 3 out of the 4, but 1 out of the 4 questions, we don't feel compelled to give an answer. So it goes like this. Why are these questions being asked? Why are the children coming to the table and they see things are different? The Gemara says, by the way, on the Seder night, you should make things different. You should create some sort of a change. We want to cause the children, want to cause everybody to ask questions based on what they see, based on... Right nowadays, nobody asks, why did you cover the matzahs? Yeah, why did you uncover the matzahs? Yeah, everybody knows because that's what it says in the Haggadah. But really, if you could create a Seder in such a way that people are asking questions because they are curious, so that's the best. There's a story when Abaye in the Gemara says, we're now patur from asking Manish Tana because they asked a question of something that happened. So let's think about it. They ask, why is it on all other nights we have chametz, tonight we have matzah? Why are you asking that question? Because for the last month, you've been telling me, don't take your sandwich into here, don't take your sandwich into there, come and help this, clean the car, clean this, clean that. You come to the table, there's no lechem mishneh, there's the strange Seder plate with all these matzahs. Okay, it's a reasonable question to ask. Second question, on all other nights, we don't eat our vegetables, right? Tonight, you're really insistent that we eat our greens, that we eat this lettuce, this bitter herbs. Why? Because there's a big Seder plate and there's all this lettuce, and you spent the last 24 hours just washing lettuce, and you see it on the table. So they're asking a question: why are you doing this? What's this about? Every other night you come to the table, your chair's there, you sit down normally. Tonight you've got pillows. Some people are turning their chairs this way, turning their chairs that way. You're leaning over. Okay. On all other nights we don't dip our food. Tonight we dip our food twice. Why are they asking that question? They're not asking that question because they've seen you dip the food twice. Because when do we dip? We dip once for karpas, and then we dip again for maror. Where does Manish Tana take place? This is at the beginning of Magid. So we've only dipped our food once at this point. We haven't dipped twice. So why are you asking the question? You're asking that question because that's what it says in the Haggadah. You're asking that question because that's what they told you to say. So a question that they told you to say, we don't necessarily feel compelled to answer. If you're going to come, you have all the questions that come from you, we'll answer your questions. Ask whatever you want. You're asking a question because you got told to ask, so we don't necessarily have to answer yet. Okay. But what's the answer nonetheless? What's the answer nonetheless? Why do we, about dipping twice? How is that related to the Galut, to the Geulah, to Yetziat Mitzrayim, etc.? So the Ben Ish Chai is a beautiful answer. He says dipping twice alludes to 2 different dippings. 2 dippings, one which began the Galut, and one which began the Geulah. The dipping which began the Galut was the coat. The coat, Yosef's brothers took the coat and they dipped it in blood, and they brought it in church. That was the beginning of the whole story of not Yetziat Mitzrayim, of Shiabut Mitzrayim, of going down, etc. On the night when we came out, and when we brought the Korban Pesach, so there too, there was a dipping, taking the twigs and dipping in the blood and putting it on the doorpost. That symbolized the beginning of the process of Geulah. So says the Ben Ish Chai, we dip on this night twice. That is also that it's a reminder of everything that took place. And that first dipping, that dipping is there to teach us, to remind us that how did Galut Mitzrayim begin? We celebrated, we're talking about going out, Hashem brought us out. But why did we go down there in the first place? And it goes back, it traces back to the Sinat Chinam. It traces back to the Sinat, to the hatred that took place between Yosef and his brothers. to the fact, as the Torah tells us, they couldn't even talk to each other. They couldn't even say shalom one to another. That was the beginning, and it was that hatred and that jealousy and that envy. That was what caused that machloket that began this whole process, and that was why, one of the reasons why we ended up in Egypt, and why Hashem needed to redeem us from. And that is the connection. That is the deep connection between Pesach and Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av, we remember the Korban. We remember what the root causes of it. Gemara Yoma tells us, Beit Rishon, Avodah Zarah, Shvichut Damim, Gilui Arayot. Beit Sheni was destroyed because of Sinat Chinam. Again, that hatred amongst Jews, that hatred amongst our people, between brothers, and that was what began the Galut. That was what led directly to the Qurban. And that is what needs to be corrected in order for us to come out and in order for us to achieve freedom. And therefore, this is not just a fancy gematria, but the Ramah is telling us something much deeper. He's saying on Pesach, we have a zecher leChurban. We have a zecher for the morning. We remember that, yes, as uplifting and as exalted as that our Seder will be, Bezrat Hashem, it is still a shadow of the real thing, because there is no Beit Mikdash and there is no Korban and there is no Korban Pesach, and that is because we have not achieved the complete Geula. And if, as the Yerushalmi says, that every generation where the Beit HaMikdash has not been rebuilt, it's as if he destroyed it. So why is it that tonight we have to remember? Again, not to mourn too much, right? As the Gra told us, it's a Simchat Yom Tov, but we have to remember the root cause of that and how we can try and correct that and how we can try and fix that. Very, very quickly, how does all this connect to Parshat Shavua? So Pesach, the name of the Chag, the Arizal tells us that the word Pesach means many different things, but Pesach, the mouth speaks, right? Pesach is all about speech. Magid, right? Speaking, that is the main part of the Seder. We could ask a fifth question, by the way, to the four questions. Like on all other nights, we say, the Torah teaches us, say a little, right? On this night, what do we say? Tonight we talk and talk and talk and talk and talk as much as we can. Why? Perhaps the answer is this. And this is what we see in the Mitzorah, this week's Parsha. So Chazal saw there in that word Mitzorah, they saw an allusion to Motzi Shemra. Somebody who spoke Lashon Hara, somebody who spoke slander. And when they come and they get Sarat, and eventually when they get their Kapara, they bring their Korban, they bring two birds, and one of the birds is slaughtered, brought as a Korban, and one of the birds is set free. And maybe that alludes to different types, different ways of correcting speech. The correction for evil speech, for Lashon Hara, is not silence. That's part of it. As well. There is an element of silence, but there's another element of using the gift of speech. Once it's been used for negative, it needs to be used for positive as well. And that is what Pesach comes to teach us. Pesach, right? We remember that the Galut began with that dipping. Remember, the Churban began because of that Sinat Chinam, because of that Lashon Hara. The way to correct that is not just by being silent. No, we have to go to the other side. We have to use that speech for the proper way. We have to use it. L'saper banisim, baniflaot. Use it for saying the Divrei Torah and words which will bring us closer together. And in that way, ultimately, Bezrat Hashem, we will merit the Geulah Shlema, might be soon, and in our days. Rabbi Hanania ben Akasha merits HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'zakot Yisrael. לפיכך בא להם תור מצוות, שנאמר דרך חפץ מן צדקו, יגדיר תורה ויד.